here with Hash, and he heads up international markets for Cribl, having previously worked for Splunk for 13 years. And we're very fortunate to have worked with Hash, and this is going to be our first in our series where we start breaking down what observability is, why specifically Hash sees Cribl as the next big thing. And what we want to do via this series is to break down some of the topics and make it understandable for people, because as the buzzwords develop, more and more people are starting to have different ideas of what observability is. So in the first stage of this interview, we're going to describe exactly what observability is and how Hash sees us playing into this new data space that we're moving into. So Hash, thank you for joining me, and over to you, please.
Thank you, Alan. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and spend some time discussing a little bit more about the world of streaming data and how we fit into it. So to go to your first question about what is observability, kind of get this question a lot, and it's kind of thrown about without really understanding the far-reaching implications of what that concept actually means. So think of observability as an engine management system for your car, right? It's monitoring the heat, it's monitoring the exhaust, the fuel, and actually when the next maintenance is due. So it's really a set of metrics giving you full picture of the operations of your engine, right? So in the world of observability, there's really three key pillars, right? Metrics, traces, and logs. So let's start with metrics. They're effectively a measure of a system's performance. So think of it as a KPI. Examples of this, if you want to go down into real world use cases, would be response times, transactions per second, memory usage, uptime, those type of metrics, right? The second component is traces. So these are effectively representations of a process from start to finish. So for example, an online ordering or a cart checkout would be from the minute you press purchase, all of those activities that happens to the point that money is taken out of your account and the confirmation is sent. So this really tells you if a system is behaving good or badly, and where these potential issues are happening. Typically, traces are complex. They go through a number of different processes and really help identify where there's contention or performance bottlenecks. Now, in the old school world, back in the days of effectively client server, you had one big application that did pretty much everything. So your core banking application would be one big, gigantic platform, and that was actually relatively easy to monitor. But in the world of containerization today, that big application is split up into multiple smaller containers or sub processes that could be tens or hundreds of sub processes that make up this larger environment. Obviously, it's a lot harder to instrument in that environment, and really there's a couple of challenges: the interconnectivity and the disparate nature of these processes. So that's a little bit about traces. The final and third component is around logs. Think of logs as hooks that have been put in by developers for interesting pieces of information. And this is typically for the purposes of application support, but actually I'm seeing more and more use cases for business level reporting as well in the context of logs.
So Hash, now that we understand that observability is a breakdown of metrics, traces, and logs, who would your traditional consumers be of this product, and why would they be interested in observability?
Yeah, great question. So as mentioned, the combination of metrics, traces, and logs provides very, very detailed telemetry that can actually be leveraged by multiple stakeholder groups within the organization. So typically, they would be application support, the DevOps team, the NOC, traditional players, but also a lot of this data has a lot of cyber relevance as well. So there's a lot of telemetry of activity, good or bad. And there's also governance issues that you need to be aware of. All of this data is potentially coming in unfiltered, with a lot of privacy information, a lot of PII. And now it's the job of the cyber teams to effectively sanitize this data and make it available to those stakeholder groups in a safe way or in a compliant way.
So Hash, this is very fascinating. I mean, and I think it leads me to my next question, which would be, what are the trends that we're seeing in the observability space? Obviously, observability is brand new, but what are the trends that we could take from what you're seeing in the market at the moment?
So as you can imagine, this data has huge value to the business as well. And one of the trends actually I've been seeing over the last probably 12 to 18 months is the observability data is actually, when you think about it, the DNA of your business, right? Most businesses now are digital first, or they're going through some kind of digital transformation. And observability is a core component of really understanding that data. So think of it as the raw materials for you to be able to make data-driven decisions.
So Hash, you obviously had a very successful career before you moved across to Cribl. And this is now seen as the next big chapter in terms of your personal career. What are you seeing as the challenges and potentially the stimulation that observability is going to bring to your new role?
So observability, as we've kind of talked about the three pillars, is going to become more and more relevant for a number of different reasons. But if you just imagine the analogy of data, and I think I've already outlined some of the core stakeholder groups. So just imagine one set of data, but you put different lenses on it. So one lens would be for the network operations team, another lens would be for the SecOps team, another lens would be for the DevOps team. And frankly, you're leveraging the same data multiple times and getting 20 times more value out of it. So this is what really excites me about the streaming data space and observability. And this is squarely what Cribl is in the business of doing.
So as we wrap up our first episode and look to put the golden thread going into the more episodes, we encourage you to come back to learn more about observability from a technical perspective. What are your closing thoughts, Hash, and something you can leave with us to get people to come back and to want to watch the next episode?
So look, first of all, this is an educational series. So the purpose is really to give you nuggets of information. One of the best resources, frankly, is our resource library on our webpage. So if you go to cribl.io resources, you'll find a whole bunch of material regarding observability, security, IT ops. There's some really good material there, our blogs, and wait for our next episode. I'm sure we'll have something interesting to talk about on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Ash. It's been great chatting with you.